Hi, this is Liz, and welcome to my podcast, Spiritually Speaking with Liz. I've got a really exciting guest for you today, but before we start, I'd just like to remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, to follow on your podcast app, our podcast, and then you'll get the notifications of when new ones come up. So today we've got the gorgeous Diane Benson. So I'm just going to read my little notes because I'll forget because she's diverse. Wait while you hear this. So I like to call her Yogi Adventurer Diane Benson. So Diane has been moving. She's had many incarnations in this lifetime, I would say, from the head of geography at the International School of Milan to being a private tutor for two children living between America, Kenya, and London. She's been 18 years in America, working mainly with animals, doing spiritual healing, Reiki, animal communication. And then she briefly came back to teach yoga in the UK and set up her business Yoga Den, which she's still carrying on now. And now she has just moved to France, bought a fabulous place, and she's living out there, living the dream, setting up a retreat. I'm presuming, I don't know, I haven't spoken to her about this, and I wanted to share it with you all, then it's natural. So Diane, welcome.
Hello, Liz. Welcome. Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's great to see you. So we met about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years
Yeah,
ago,
5 year.
something like
Yeah, I
that.
just
Yeah.
I just got back, I think, from America.
Yeah. So you just got back from America, you came in the shop, and I recognized that what I had when I came back from Spain, that bewilderment of being back in another country. Do I want to be here? I'm not sure. I've come back because I feel I've had to come back type thing you had,
Yeah,
didn't you?
that's right.
So
It is a shock for sure.
yeah, I would imagine that. So I don't know where to start with you because there's so many things that we've touched on but never like truly explored. So you started your spiritual path when you were 19 ish.
Way before that,
Or
but
was it before then? Go on, then you
yeah.
tell me.
I don't know whether everybody's heard of this, but there's something called highly sensitive people, and we are born into that state, and I was born into being a highly sensitive person, really empathic and intuitive. And of course, as a child, you don't know that. And we live in a society that's quite brutal. It's not easy to be sensitive in this very quite aggressive, fast world.
Mm-hmm.
So the spiritual journey, I think, started very young with my connections to animals, because animals were calmer and quieter and more truthful than, innately truthful compared to humans who are quite noisy and aggressive and fast. And so I had that very deep connection quite early on to presence with animals. And then, just trying to survive in the world of people and everything, you go from one thing to another. So the the whole spiritual journey started very early, but then obviously it's developed considerably over all the external um, experiences I've had.
Yeah, of course. So let's jump to age 19,
Yeah,
going to India, which obviously piqued
yeah,
my interest.
yeah.
So tell me about that. How long did you go for and what was it like?
Right. Well, I at 18, I took myself off to Jersey. I'd never been anywhere in my life, really, and I just took myself off to Jersey. I didn't tell anybody I was going. I didn't say a word. I just got a train, got a ferry, and went to Jersey for some reason. And then when I came back, I told my sister, and she said, "Well, let's go traveling." And I said, "Okay, where should we go?" Let's go to India. I'd never even thought about India. I wasn't into yoga. I'd never had any knowledge or anything. So I'm a real believer in following your heart. That's the real theme of my life. And there's a calling for some reason. You don't understand it. You don't know it. You don't even know why you're having these things, these thoughts. But you just do. You just act on it. So we went to India. We had a small backpack and a few £100 in our pockets, a return flight, and that's all we had. We had no plans, no hotels booked. Yeah, and this was like 33 years ago, so it was not commercial like it is now. Oh my God. When people say to me there's internet and all these things and hotels, and I think, oh my gosh, that, you know, there was just nothing like that. You know, in Nepal, you're having nettle soup and raw potato soup that's some rancid potato they find somewhere. Or so we landed in Bombay, as it was, and Mumbai. And we traveled down south and all the way to the tip and all the way around. And we were on trains and mud huts and railway stations and backpacking hostels that were so rough in that day. Oh my gosh. When I think now, I have this aversion to fleas and things like that in the night because of backpacking in India. And it's just but, you know, when I was 19, I was so shy and very quiet and inexperienced in life. So I had no idea how much it impacted me, psychologically, spiritually, and physically as well. But yeah, I came back a very different person as a 19-year-old. We were there 3 months in India, a month in Nepal, trekking in the Himalayas.
Wow.
And then on the way home, we actually slept on the beach in Turkey for a month just to recoup.
A month?
Yeah, I know. We got a job on a beach. We slept in a tent and got a job on a cafe on the beach, and we just stayed.
How fab.
But, you know, in India, that's where the spiritual side of it really kicked up, because even though I didn't realize at the time, that's where the Hinduism, the Buddhism, the Taoism, the passion for cultures and the wisdom of different cultures around the world, but especially the Taoism for me, that was the flow, the way of the life. And when I look back, it's definitely where it started. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't get into yoga then. Everyone thinks, oh, go to India for yoga.
Yeah. Well, you went more for the mind aspect and the well, people don't seem to understand, do they? They think that yoga is just asana practice. They don't realize that it's the 8 limbs. So go on.
It's in the Western world, that's what we focus on, the physical body. But in India and in the East, and traditionally, it's to strengthen the mind, so that helps the body to become strong, and vice versa as well. But I was never into the physical asana for years later. For me, it was always that connection to spirit, to God, to earth, and each other, and our footprint in the world, really.
Yeah, for sure. So then when you came to asana practice, that was through pain, you'd said. So what was that?
When I was in America, I've lived a very extraordinary life, and because of that, I have lots of injuries. I've fallen off rock climbing falls. I've had falls off horses, off mountains, I've just got injuries right through the spine. And that's become a theme for my life, really. And that's what leads me into all the alternative therapies and the meditation and stuff, to manage and cope with pain and everything that brings, the isolation, the loss of friends and social life, the changing of careers because you can't cope. There's a heart chakra that is heavy when you're in pain, and then the throat chakra gets clogged up because you can't express it, and people get sick of hearing, that you're in pain. Get on with it. So my world became quite isolated through all the degree of pain in the neck and spine. But when I was in America, I decided, that wind changed direction, and I just got that grit between my teeth and said, come on, girl. and I just decided, I bought a yoga mat, and I said, I don't know what the hell this is all about. I went to a yin yoga practice, and it was a very odd experience of There was no meditation. For me, that was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And it was just this practice, but there was a connection with people that was new for me as well, and that energy that is created when people get together in the same consciousness and just be present and be honest and authentic in whatever way you are, pain or joy or whatever it is. So it was an extraordinary experience. And again, not just for the physical, but for the psyche side of yoga. And to experience all the physical yoga that actually did help the body, that's piques your interest when, of course, you feel relief.
Mm-hmm.
So over time, I just went back a few times and started reading and studying, and it was just obvious that I, had the calling to take the practice further and see if I could teach. I studied under a lady in California who was of the Iyengar lineage,
Mm-hmm.
which, for anybody who doesn't know, is pretty much the yoga that is focused on alignment. So as your body, we go through life very unbiased in the body, and Iyengar helps to realign left, rights, ups, downs. And so you practice with a mindfulness of correct alignment, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was fabulous. And she was also a very joyful American, and always lots of fun, which is huge for yoga.
Yeah,
it shouldn't
definitely.
ever be this serious.
I know, but people make it that way,
I
and
know,
it's
it
a
drives me
shame.
insane.
Same. Yeah. Oh, you must have gone in a cave for years and all this sort
Yeah.
of thing. And, nobody can, I know you do.
Yeah.
I used to have a laugh in the classes because that's part of it. It's a release, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a healing. And I mean,
Mm.
isn't it a cliche that the more you laugh, the healthier you are? But, whenever I used to teach yoga, or still do, I've never had a lesson plan. I've taught thousands of classes over 10 years, and I've never once had one class that's the same as the other, because people walk through the door and you just can read what their aura is saying or what their physical body is needing. And quite often it's just a release of tension, stress. So, laughter is a good thing for that.
I wanted to ask you about, I forgot, Monty Roberts. So Monty Roberts is a horse trainer,
Yeah.
and you did some training under him. And you said that really opened your intuition. How? What was it that brought that on?
So a change in tact here for anybody who's not into horses or equine knowledge of any type. It's quite hard to understand the depth of perception that horses, all animals do, but horses are extraordinary, and they feel and know and see and hear, and they just have this sensory perception. So Monty Roberts is a famous author and horse trainer in California. And at the time, I was working as a cowgirl in the Midwest of America. And I was rounding cows up with no knowledge, never been taught to ride. I just get in the saddle, get on. And I was there for nearly a year as a cowgirl. And I read this book by Monty Roberts, and I just knew, again, the wind changed direction. And I just sort of said, sorry, see ya, I gotta go. And off I drove from the Midwest to California to seek out this man, because he trains from a very gentle point of view. There's no whips or beating or anything of any negative aggression technique. And there is a psyche, it's called Join Up. And, I don't really like to get into labels and things like that, but it's using your physical body language with your mental perception to communicate with horses. And when you stare a horse in the eye, it's quite aggressive, as in move back. But if you lower your shoulder and your eyes away, that's come on in. There's this whole Equus language that is out there, and it is incredible. So I trundled off in my Mini Cooper to California, and right place, right time. His PA was just leaving, and I said, "I'm homeless. I haven't got a job." So I stayed on his farm, working as his PA eventually, and I trained in all his join up and long lining techniques on the farm in California, and it was extraordinary. But what was even more important for me was when you are a highly sensitive or just a quiet person and you take the time to be with a horse or animals and you're just still and hear and see and listen, there's a whole connection there that is way beyond the physical or the verbal. So I started to develop the psychic abilities quite strongly. And the first time it happened, I was hand walking a horse every day for half an hour for injuries rehab. And I just started to stop talking. I started to telepathically communicate and just, talk to the horse that way. And she showed me a picture of a foal with a white hoof. I mean, a fetlock, a white fetlock ankle at the back. And this mare hadn't been pregnant, and neither was she going to be pregnant, according to the owner. So I told the owner, luckily, about this image I'd seen. Anyhow, a year later, this mare had had a foal, and the owner texted me to say she's just had a black foal with a white back fetlock. And wow. and those experiences were over and over and over again. Too many to talk about, but we all have this ability. We all have that ability to use your mind in such a bigger range of thought than what we do. We're just lazy. We don't train it.
It's true, or we just ignore it because we've got to be we need to be being, but we've got to be doing and active all the time. And it's not, I've seen you with Priya, obviously, and how you are anyway, because you're a very gentle person. But with her, I found it really interesting because you were doing that sort of, I'm sure it's different, and excuse my ignorance, but you sat down, you didn't go and sit next to her or anything.
Yeah.
You sat down and then slowly she came to you.
Yeah, well, that's, one of the biggest things I'm really passionate about is just patience and compassion and respect of somebody's space. So if a stranger comes up to me and they are in my space, then I'm not too happy about that. It is, it depends on their energy, of course. I've had hugs from people that I've not known, and it's fine. But animals are very sensitive, and to honor somebody's space or some creature's space and allow them to make the decision for themselves whether they want to be next to me or not, that's a different energy completely than me intruding and assuming that because I'm human, you will be with me. So to have that respect and honor of another creature or another person is quite big, and that comes through into the Reiki. I'm a Reiki master, and I did that in California as well, but I trained in England to start with. And again, when you're working with people, it's the same thing. You don't just barge in there just because you've got a right to be there. You invite somebody into your space or an animal.
It's very true. Very true. And that perfectly leads me on another tangent. One of the things that I didn't know this about you, and when you sent your blurb over, like I asked, and you told me that you've been studying or actually been with a lot of different tribes.
Mm.
How did that, tell me, how did that start? Who and where and when? And
yeah, I don't know. I think, again, it goes back to an early age of, I actually think my parents were instigative in this, because we didn't have much money growing up. We were a Yorkshire working class family, but we were always on adventures. And, Dad would always take us and teach us about trees and birds, and Mum would always be, we'd be out there adventuring just locally. And I think that's where it comes from, just to see, are we there yet? What's over that hill, around that corner? And so the traveling, when I went to India, obviously started it. I saw different colored people, different people wearing strange clothing, and eating strange things. And so that started the wisdom with the Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism. But again, it's the philosophy of tribal people that has always fascinated me. And again, it goes with the Reiki and the horse work and the alternative therapies. There's a gentleness and a connection to working with rather than fighting against. And when you look at tribal people around the world, there is that working with the environment, working with each other. And it's not, women were very powerful, weren't they, in tribal communities. They're the healers and the teachers and the mothers and the grandmothers and the wise ones, and the warriors. But it's fascinating just to, I led an expedition to South Africa in 1997 or 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And it was sponsored by the Royal Geographical Society. And I got a team of 6 people, scientists from university. And we went out to a community in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. And we studied their water, where they got their water sources from. So we created this huge map. And we learned basic Pidgin Zulu, and we got invited to all sorts of Zulu traditions and celebrations. And there's no white people, there's no roads, there's no electricity, there's no running water, mud huts and rendezvous. And so it just goes on and on and on, from one country to another, seeking out the most native people, the most traditional people that I could find. And I think where it really kicked off was when I was a geography teacher. I was a passionate teacher because of the earth. But what I realized is that not all children, like me as a child, not all children can either afford to, or they don't have the opportunities to really travel and see the things that are in these textbooks. So I made it my teaching life mission that every summer holiday I would go to places that I used to teach about and bring back archives and slides and photographs and traditional things, clothing and all sorts of things like that, to make it real for children that couldn't get to these places. So my classroom was always, yeah, exactly. And music, I'd bring back traditional music. Like in Australia, I'd bring back the didgeridoo and so my classroom was full of native music and native instruments, and it was just packed with geography that was life, real proper geography. And so that became a real passion to just fulfill that.
How exciting though for the students, because there's nothing, well, for me, that would have made me sit up and listen and look to have something that this instrument is from, this clothing, this bedspread, whatever it is from this place.
It's like you, Liz, when you go to India, you come back with all these things and it just brings your shop to life. You're not just a clothes shop or a gift shop. It is India, because it's authentic.
Thank you. Well, that's to me that is, and it's my home out of India.
exactly.
It just brings it to the people, you know, so it gives them that feeling.
Yeah, exactly. So when I sorry to carry on, but when I went to university, I went on an expedition to Iceland with a disabled man. He had cerebral palsy, and he wanted to make an independent crossing from southwest right through the interior past the Vatnajökull glacier right to the northeast into the Arctic. So I was part of the backup crew driving the Land Rover and supporting him. So that started that sort of role into that area. And then when I was at university, I specialized in glaciation of all things. So I went to Greenland for a month and slept in a tent right next to the ice sheet in Greenland. Yeah, it was pretty cold. And then I had this down jacket that was huge, the little nose poking out of this down jacket. But you know, to study the movement of glaciation. Now, what was fabulous about that anybody who knows anything about glaciers, they move millimeters a year or retreat fast, but you know, their forward movement can be millimeters if less or more. So when it comes to stillness and presence and absolutely being alive with stimulation of your nervous system, Greenland was absolutely up there, top notch for me. I would sit on a rock in the middle of the ice sheet, you know, just on the edge, not in the middle, obviously. On the edge of the ice sheet, I'd just sit on the rock, and there was only 4 of us there, you know, and the noises, you know, it's the wind or the creaking of the ice as it moves, or a bird going by, a ptarmigan or something, but the stillness and the presence, you know, it was incredible. And that, like the horses, the glacier in Greenland really heightened that alertness, awareness. Yeah.
So everything's brought you around sort of a full circle, really, hasn't it?
It always comes back to presence, stillness, meditation, and just being alive in this world. You know, that there is not any worse feeling, I think, than being stuck. You know, heart stuck, throat stuck, communication stuck, career stuck, relationship stuck. You know, it's just an awful experience for the body and the nervous system and your mind. So I just really believe that you don't sort of try and pretend it's not there, but you just allow it to come up, allow it to surface itself. And then when it's had its time, kick it up the butt and say, right, on your way. It's time to move forward and do something, make a decision. So, you know, I've always had that sort of attitude of it doesn't matter if it's the wrong decision, because you can always change it later, but make a decision.
Yeah, no, I like that, because people become stuck because of their own fears. They don't move past the anxiety. They don't move past the fear. So they stay in that stuckness, which is way more than any fear, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, it is. And for the, you know, when you talk about yoga and the stagnation, you know, for the internal organs and the nervous system, and it's all usually down to fear of stepping outside of what's normal or what's familiar or what's easy. I mean, how many times I've heard it through my life, I chose not to have children. It's not something that just happened to me. I chose not to do it because I wanted to live this type of life. And it really has always been something where I've come back and people have said, oh, you're so lucky. I wish I could do that. And I think, do you know what? There's nothing to do with luck. I don't even believe in luck. There isn't such a thing. You make it happen. You have a thought, you have a feeling, and you do something about it.
Well, you say yes, don't you?
Yes.
The door knocks, you
Yes.
open it and say, yeah, where we're going or what we're
Yeah,
doing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
totally.
And I get it, Liz. People aren't. It's hard when you have a job and children and mortgage, and I'm not judging anybody. I've just chosen this life for me because I want to give back so much, and that's my way of. I don't have children to give to, but I want to give back to people in general.
Yeah, I get that same. I totally agree with that. So on a daily practice, what do you do day to day? What is your must-dos for you?
For yoga, you mean?
Just everything. What do you know? What are your daily practices that help you? Yoga as well and meditation, but what in what form do you do them, and what else do you do?
Right. So actually, I really love to when I rise in the morning. Well, remember, I'm teaching Zoom 2 or 3 classes a day, so that's pretty prominent in my routine. So I like to rise in the morning, and if it's sunny outside or at least warm, I get outside with a cup of tea just to feel the groundedness of the earth and whatever was going on in the atmosphere, the wind, the cold, the sun, whatever. I like to just have a little bit of stillness with a cup of tea and let Dakota Dog do his stuff, and then I usually teach. And then I like to have my breakfast is always important because your mum always says it's the most important meal of the day. So I still have that breakfast routine, and sometimes it's a piece of fruit and sometimes it's a great big mound of something or other. And then I always take Dakota for a long walk. So after yoga, there's a yoga routine, there's a meditation outside usually. And then I take Dakota for his walk. And right now it's different because I'm here in France, but I usually get into the garden and do some hacking back or work there, building something or other. And then I teach again in the evening. And then after that, I always light the fire. So no matter what time of night it is, by the time I finish, I light the fire. I curl up with Dakota Dog and my book. I read a lot. I write a lot. And I like to just totally chill in the evening. I like the candles and the incense. And so that's sort of like, at the moment, it's very different because I'm here. But when I was at home, I was running from I was teaching private yoga and Zoom yoga, and I was at different sports clubs and health clubs and studios. So I was all over the place, backwards and forwards, and that was the routine. So here, there's a lot of stillness, and I don't go anywhere unless I choose to. And so the outside is the dominant factor for my life at the moment.
And what led you there? What were the breadcrumbs that took you there?
Well, about 15 years ago, I tried to start retreats, not just yoga, but I don't like these labels, these spiritual retreats, yoga retreats. I hate them. They're just escape places to go to remember our humanity, talk to each other, have some experience that moves you. And that's what I wanted always to create. And I've got a lot of experiences from all my travels and journeys around the world and spiritually. And I wanted to always to pass them on and to share. So when I was in America, I've tried 2 or 3 times to start retreats. And of course, when it's on somebody else's property, they either sell up or they kick you off or there's a problem or so I gave up really. And when I came home, I'd been away 15 years, so the house prices had risen a little bit. So that was that out for a while. And then we realized that in France, we could buy a property that had 4 acres, an old farmhouse. And it was affordable, more affordable than a small, tiny property in Yorkshire with no land. So we decided to just do that and give up everything that I can sell or give away and try and make it work out here. So it is, hopefully, eventually, it will be my base. I'm not there yet. I don't have residency, but it will be a base. And we are turning it into a center for the heart and mental health, physical health, spiritual health. If you want to come and help me and dig the ground and pull weeds, and you are very welcome. You can camp or sleep rough or at the moment. But I've always wanted a spiritual center that draws people in for healing of your heart, mind, and soul. And that does not mean sitting cross-legged, serious. That means laughing and music and campfires and eating good, simple food that we've grown in the garden. And we all cook French food and eat together with a bottle of wine or something. And, we're hacking back during the day, or we're building some structure, and and we talk in the evenings and play music or art or read, or all of these things that it's just like the old days, Liz. How brilliant 100 years ago must have been. We actually laughed and talked,
communicated.
So that's pretty much what we're aiming for here. And we've made a start. The first guest bedroom will be ready in August.
Woo-hoo, book me in. Oh, how fabulous.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you, this is my theme for this season, sort of, what 3 pieces of advice as Diane now would you give to younger Diane?
Gosh, that is you're a tough cookie, Liz. It's a hard question because everything that you go through as a younger Diane, as a younger person, that's what's led me to who or what I am today. So it's a challenging question. But I would say, instead of hiding away in the sensitivity and the shyness and the quietness of who my soul, my spirit, my person is, just try and be brave about it and honor it rather than hide it. Just be who you are. It doesn't matter. Just be honest and kind and good, and it doesn't matter who or what you are. So stop hiding from the shyness. Get out there.
I love that.
I don't know. Yeah. And well, it's a silly one and it only relates to me, really, but in this whole journey through alternative therapies and the pain journey that I've experienced for 25 years, it has directed the course of my life. And it all started with falling off a rock climb in 1997. I was leading a rock climb and I fell and hit the ground. And I just adjusted my vertebrae in my neck. So at the time, I was a Yorkshire girl. I was a tough cookie. I brushed myself down and said, get on with it. But that was definitely, that moment steered my life. So as a young Diane, I would say, get yourself to the chiropractor immediately. Don't wait 9 years for your body to get into such a bad condition. So anybody who's had whiplash, falls, anything at all that creates a sort of jarring of the neck or back, I would say go see osteopaths, chiropractors, or anybody that can just realign that spine, because the spine is the center of all our health. And that's a big thing I would say to Diane of the young. And lastly, I probably would say, sitting here in this pretty chilly French farmhouse in Normandy, because I only have a log burner as heater, I would say when you're in your French classes at school, you should have paid attention. I would say learn French as a child instead of bonjour madame, ça va. That's all I could remember.
Isn't it funny?
I would have paid attention and got my O level, my A level.
Oh, that is so funny, but it's so true, is that?
Yeah.
It's made me think with you saying about the spine. Have you ever read the book? I can't remember what it's called, but she was called Vanda Scaravelli.
No.
She got to yoga in I can't remember whether she was late 60s or late 80s, but she was she was saying that you are only as old as your spine is flexible.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a very yogi. Yes, lots of yogi sort of talk says about that, you know, over these years, I have learned so much about the spine and all that it is connected to in our bodies and our minds. And, you know, it blows my mind that doctors and I'm not knocking doctors, they're fantastic, but they don't have this talk about the spine. It's everything. Your nervous system is so interconnected into it, and you know, your digestive system, your organs, your psychological state, your emotional state, and now, you know, at 54, menopausal state.
Oh, please.
You know, the spine is absolutely central, literally and metaphorically, to the health of our being. And you are only as old as your spine, which unfortunately yeah,
it's very true. Awakening the Spine, the book's called. It's just popped
okay, I'll check it out. Thanks, Liz. Yeah.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome.
I'm going to put all your details, like your social media details, in the show notes so people can get in touch. So maybe people might want to volunteer with doing with any building works or decorating or gardening.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And one of the, I know you've finished, but one of the philosophies that I'm running here on the farm in France is I have done all these adventures around the world and all these extraordinary things, and I've never really had any money to say anything about. I've worked, I've earned it, you know, I've created that through hard work. But I've also volunteered my time a lot. So when I was on a 5-month meditation retreat in Montana, an intensive, and that was $10,000, and I didn't have that. Wow. So you know, people from all over America were there, all paying this money for 6 months. So I said, well, I can cook and I can clean and I can do this and I volunteered my time for 5 months. I was there free. I worked and I got to experience 5 months intensive meditation teacher training. So that's what I would like to offer here. There are lots of people who have lots of skills. The sort of incorporating, you come here if you want to pitch your tent on the grass outside. There's a toilet, there's a shower, I'll feed you. But obviously you work, and we do yoga. We'll do whatever. You can have days off to the beach. So obviously it'll be vetted, and it's not. I don't want hordes of people in. But it is there. That will be communicated in my Facebook and Instagram posts. So
perfect. Well, yeah. My listeners are fabulous, so they'll be good. Don't worry. There.
Yeah, good stuff. Great.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Oh, Diane, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, don't miss out on going to see Diane. She's a very special person, and I know what she creates will just be fabulous. So don't miss out.
Thank you, Liz. That. Yeah, thanks for having me on your show, Liz.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Diane. Thank you guys for joining us, and I'll be back again with another fabulous guest very soon. Thanks. Bye.